insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes? Are we dealing with two separate things, or what is really going on here? We're going to go through that and more and talk about what you can actually do about it to address the underlying root cause. That and more on this first listener question. Hey, welcome to the Diabetes Remission Roadmap podcast with the two renegade pharmacists, Brian Bisher and Cory Jenks. You are listening to this because you are a person with type 2 diabetes who is committed and driven to breaking free from this diagnosis and creating a real, meaningful change in your health and life. In these episodes, we're here to help you ditch the scripts with doses of unconventional wisdom on topics such as fitness, nutrition, medication, mindset, and more. So without any further delay, let's dive right in. Welcome back, it's Brian here, and I'll be going solo on this episode since Cory and I have had a bit of a hard time lining up the schedules, but we don't want that to delay answering one of our first listener questions, and it's a good one because it really gets to the heart of type 2 diabetes, what's going on, and hoping to really break through the confusion here. So that being said, we're going to get right to it. So the question is, hey, I'm insulin resistant. What does that mean exactly? I was diagnosed type 2 last August. I'm so confused at this point. Am I dealing with two different things? And that's a great question because I'm sure you've heard the phrase insulin resistance thrown around. It is a new hot trending topic I've seen on Instagram. So many coaches are now like insulin resistance coaches, and they're really just trying to, I'll be honest, like market a specific problem you are aware of. And maybe you're not even aware of that's the underlying root cause of type 2 diabetes. But to answer this question just briefly, they are related. They are the same thing. Type 2 diabetes is what we would classify as like end stage insulin resistance, meaning it's like the final step in insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is something that develops years in advance. It's going on for a long time. It starts in your muscle tissue, and then it starts to translate over into your liver. So what happens is over time, and here's the cool thing, not cool thing, but just unique information about insulin resistance is you don't have to be type 2 diabetic to have it. Like I said, it happens. It can happen early on. It might progress to type 2 diabetes if nothing is done about it. It is also related with other things like PCOS, but it really starts, like I said, in the muscle, and it can just start to develop from short periods of time or longer periods of time drawn out with little activity. So you can develop insulin resistance as a healthy young individual. If I were to just sit at this desk all day long, not moving my body or drastically decreasing my movement, I would start to develop insulin resistance. So it is just a chemical process that basically means we have insulin in our bloodstream. It's a hormone that signals our cells to take in sugar from the blood, right? That's as simple as it gets. It's just a messenger. It tells something to do something. And if you think of it from the lens of like, hey, like I'm shouting, that I'm giving this signal, but what happens in type 2 diabetes is the signal, just the volume gets raised so loud. And over time, if you think like, hey, this signal is so loud, I'm tired of hearing it. Like insulin levels get higher and higher to try to produce the same effect. And at a certain point, like the body just doesn't want to hear it anymore. The cells don't want to hear it anymore. So they kind of turn down their reception to that noise signal. So they're not going to do the same thing, getting that same response. So this is great though, because what that means is we can definitely impact insulin resistance and then therefore repair type 2 diabetes and repair the root cause of type 2 diabetes. So how do you repair insulin resistance? Well, if part of the problem is movement, lack of movement, then it almost seems logical that you can improve insulin resistance, or therefore like increase sensitivity, so to speak, by simply moving more. So walking, doing body squats. Like one of the cool things is it doesn't take a lot, right? We think we got to go on these long walks, 30-minute walks. It's actually been proven that shorter bouts of walking and movement before or after meals has been more impactful on improving insulin sensitivity and therefore reducing insulin resistance. So if we look at this like sensitivity is the opposite of resistance, we want to improve insulin sensitivity. We want our cells, our muscles, everything in our body to start responding to insulin so that the insulin doesn't have to keep going higher and higher or shouting higher and higher, giving a higher signal or noise to generate that response. And over time, when we do this, our body will start to realize, hey, like I don't have to generate such a high noise or signal, and it'll start to lower insulin levels. And lower insulin levels is a good thing because you do not like high insulin levels just leads to all kinds of problems, including high risk of cancer because it's a growth factor. We won't get into that. But this is why just giving insulin as part of a diabetes treatment is almost like kind of counterintuitive when the problem is high insulin levels to begin with. Like we don't just want to put fuel on the fire here. We want to start to address the root cause. Like let's just take some logs off the fire so that the fire doesn't keep burning. So that being said, get back to the movement here. What do we need to do? We just need to break this down into smaller movements throughout the day, which has been more effective than one longer walk or one longer bout of movement throughout the day. Another really cool thing was just doing some body squats, like every 45 minutes to an hour, doing 10 body squats. And that can be assisted if you're not able to do that without like holding on to something, or it could just be doing body squats just standing on the ground. That has been shown to start to improve insulin sensitivity. And where this happens is like I said, in the muscle. So over time, when you don't move your muscle a lot, you have this buildup of extra energy in the cell. And that's like this fat. So it kind of like globs up the cell, so to speak. And so you don't really get that signal. And so you have this extra energy up. You have the powerhouse of the cell, like the furnace of each of these muscle cells called the mitochondria. They start to decrease in number, so you have less ability to generate energy. And this is not good because our muscles can use up to like a third. They can take up and use up a third of the energy we take in. Now, remind you here that our goal when we take in food, it's broken down into two components simply: energy and nutrition. Energy in the form of carbohydrates and fats. These things provide our body with the fuel to use and to power all of our functions. The other thing is nutrition. So nutrition being protein, the amino acids. Our body needs to take in essential amino acids that it cannot make on its own. We also have essential fatty acids. Fat we can't take in our own, but in this case, nutrition of the protein, amino acids, we need those. We also need the vitamins and minerals we get from food. So when we get into a state of taking in way too much energy, and you pair that with less movement and activity and less use of that energy, we get to a place of high insulin resistance. Basically, the tanks fill up with energy, and in this case, like your muscles cells fill up full of energy, and they kind of glob up that signal, and therefore your body just stops responding, and you have everything just kind of spilling out. Think of it like a tank, like spilling out over top because there's just so much energy. There's nowhere else to put it. You're then trying to like cram it back in with like a higher signal, but it's not working. And so that is essentially type 2 diabetes. It's just the last stage, like we talked about, of insulin resistance. These are essentially the same thing. It is the root cause behind type 2 diabetes that is repairable through targeted movement strategies that improve your body's ability to listen to insulin, and through targeted nutrition strategies that decrease the overall energy you're taking in, because your body is also in a state of energy toxicity, meaning it just has way too much energy on hand. If you've ever heard the phrase like, this person is overfed but malnourished, that means like they've gotten in way too much energy, calories, empty calories. And that's another thing. Empty calories just basically refers to energy without nutrition. So if you think of empty calorie examples, like probably pop is like the most well-known like empty calorie example. You're basically just taking in pure energy, and there's no protein in there. There's no vitamins, no minerals in there. So your goal in this case is to move steadily, strengthen those muscles so they respond, and then they increase their ability to generate and use energy, and also safely store it and respond to our body's signaling to store the energy, and then also to reduce energy toxicity. So in this case, like eating more nutrition, focusing on eating fiber and protein to then crowd out the extra energy you're taking in. So I hope this was helpful. I'm trying to do a very high overview of this and keep this episode very brief so it's actionable for you. Really, the biggest action step you can take is what we have our clients do is they just start to walk for 5 minutes once a day before a meal, right? Because honestly, most people that I talk to, they are not moving enough. They're not aware of how many steps they're taking, and they're probably just simply not moving a whole lot throughout the day. Like most people on average like 3,000 steps a day, which is just a fraction of what is needed to be healthy. And walking is like the lowest hanging fruit that you can just do to improve your ability to live longer and healthier. It like just even getting to, I think it's like 75, don't quote me on the exact data here or the statistics here, but it's like 7,500 steps per day on average, like reduces your risk of dying by like 50%. I think it's that powerful that if you get to that level of 7,500 steps per day, it really reduces your risk of dying by a whole lot. And that's because its impact on this whole process here. So that is why one of the first things we have our clients do is just walk. Pick one meal, go for a 5-minute walk before or after that meal, and then just build on that from there. Like this is about building skills over time and really reinforcing that you are becoming the type of person who is going to create lasting change. Because when you start to bite off too much at one time, what happens is you just fall short. Inevitably, you fall short. You feel down on yourself. You beat yourself up. And next thing you know, you're giving up altogether. So we don't want that. We want small, actionable steps that make you feel successful, helping you deposit into your self-esteem bank, so to speak. Because every single time you break a promise to yourself, you withdraw from that bank, and therefore reduce your likelihood of continuing to move on and reduce your belief in yourself that you can actually make this work. So small steps here. Pick 5 minutes, walk before or after that meal. And then once you get comfortable, once you're consistent with that, add a second meal and then start doing that. And then once you get good at that, you start doing some body squats throughout the day. You get down that form of body squats, practicing that. So it's just practicing moving more throughout your day. Our bodies are designed to move more. You must do it. And then only then honestly, that alone can start to influence your food choices, just the movement and walking alone. But then you start to get into more targeted strategies here, what I'm not going to dive into. It's more reserve that for another episode about trying to increase satiety and reducing excess calorie intake through that or energy intake through that. But yeah, that's the first step, is really just moving more, steadily strengthening and increasing your muscles to start to address, repair that root cause, insulin resistance. Hope this answers your question. Thanks for sending it in. Send more questions our way. We love getting questions and hope this was a helpful response. Hope to be able to answer more of your questions in the future. And we will see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening. Now go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And you can join us on the journey and roadmap to remission.